everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Chalkboard. I'm Katie, and this is a space where we aim to build community among faculty and educators, inspire innovation, and share new technology-based teaching strategies. Thanks so much for tuning in. On episode 2 of Beyond the Chalkboard, I am speaking with Ronald Enns, who is a manager of business development in the Continuing Professional Studies program at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. In this episode, we talk about Ron's latest work with virtual live classrooms and how this could be the future of many continuing professional study courses. We are going to jump right into learning a bit more about Ron's background to start.
Yeah, my name is Ron Enns. As I mentioned, I'm the manager of business development for Continuing Professional Studies at KPU. I came from the water and wastewater sector, so that would be public works. It's a strange way and a strange trip to get here, but I'll say it as quickly as I can. I started as a laborer back in 2001 and kind of worked my way up. And within about 2 or 3 years, I'd already become the first aider for the crew and then onto the OH&S crew. Our committee, and then started getting involved that way. And then eventually they asked me to do some training. Then that's when my education started. And I went to BCIT for occupational health and safety. And from there to VCC for adult education. And took probably about 5 years of schooling, much as I could, as my family was being raised. And slowly worked my way up the ladder until I became a sub-foreman, then a foreman, then a superintendent. In the last 6 years I was superintendent. But during that time, most people would take holidays, they would leave the country. I would take holidays and go and train. I found that there was a huge lack of education around the water and wastewater industry. And it always puzzled me, considering that these are the people that take the water out of the lakes, out of the streams, out of the ground, treat it and provide that to the public. And yet they have the least amount of training. So that always got me a little concerned and puzzled. So my passion turned into instructing these people to ensure that they had the training they needed so that they could provide the safe water to the public. And that's where I started doing a lot more training, mostly around safety and operation, around water systems and sewer systems. I just got involved with associations and I did training for them. I got involved with BC Association, then I got involved with the Western Canada Association, then I got involved with the World's Association, and then I started teaching abroad. It's just been and this has all been off the side of my desk, other than my normal superintendent job. I was looking for new opportunities, leaving City of Vancouver, spent about 2 years, got 5 interviews in different cities and municipalities, and then KPU came along. They had just purchased 75 water and wastewater courses, and they needed someone to run it. And it was a perfect opportunity.
And that's where you came in.
And that's where I came in. And it has evolved quite a bit since then. Yeah. But water and wastewater has been the biggest one. So we brought that to a university institution. And it's teaching entry-level workers. And these are the workers that, like I say, they're the ones that are working in the water mains and the sewer mains. They're working in the treatment plants. They're the ones that are on the groundworks that are putting it together. They're not engineers. They're not designers. So they're the missing piece that was not being trained. We have engineers. We have water and wastewater technicians being taught by other universities and colleges in BC, but this piece was not being met, and these guys are delivering it. So that was kind of where it all started, and that became a big passion, and I was hired here to build the water and wastewater education for BC and Yukon and Western Canada and internationally.
That's exciting, and there are some really exciting things that you've been working on, and we will be able to talk a little bit more about that for sure during this podcast. So you're talking about these workers that are on the ground, they're focusing on the main safety of this water and wastewater systems. Tell me a little bit about the learner that you're trying to reach, because that I think is really, really important.
Yes, so as it stands today, for any smaller town or municipality, and these are people that are in charge of anywhere from 50 or 60 people on one water system, up to 300 or 400 in smaller towns and hamlets, up to small townships of 3, 4, 5, 6,000 people. And they currently have very little to no training, and they're providing potable water to the public. And this is where the issue and the danger lies, really. To get that training, that means, and the only training that's available is really offered here in the Lower Mainland. That's the problem. And it's usually the association that offers it, or it's us that offer it. Because the largest population is obviously the Lower Mainland, it makes sense. This is where the instructors are, this is where the where we're building it. However, that means that they've got to travel a long ways to get that training, and it's very expensive for a small town or small municipality. It just doesn't have that money. They have 5, 6, 7, 8 operators. And how do you reach those operators? They can't afford to send 5, 6, or 8 operators out of the town to the Lower Mainland. What happens if they get a water main break, or if they have to do emergency repair? There's no one to do it. So then they end up sending maybe one if they can afford it, and it's expensive, travel costs and everything else, just to get a small chunk of training and then get back. And that's currently what's happening now. They'll come to conferences and do as much as they can. We have large conferences that usually happen in the Okanagan and on the island and here in the Lower Mainland. But again, those are small populational areas, but that's still not reaching 80 to 95% of the other operators. So as I've been building this water and wastewater system, educational system from introduction all the way through to management, that was kind of the biggest gap that I've always tried to see. There's got to be a way that we can do this. So being that years and years ago, I used to be a computer programmer back in the day, and doing programming at a high school. And I've always had an affinity with electronics and systems and computers. So why can't we deliver that training the same way, only through a virtual live classroom platform? And the technology had always been there. Of course, everybody knows, I'm not going to say names, but other software pieces that have been out there, and we use a lot of business, meetings and conferences through video conferencing and all kinds of stuff. And that's been good, but the quality hasn't really always been there. And the connectivity isn't always there and that type of thing. So I heard about 2 years ago that they're planning on building this new Civic Plaza and what they're planning to put in here. And I found that through a couple of people talking when we were talking about this virtual live classroom idea. And that's kind of where it all starts to take off. I have a relationship with another organization that has currently been running the virtual live classroom on their own platform through live webinars out of their facility, and I do their training for their union facilities. So I've already had a relationship with them and have been following what they've been doing. So knowing that this place is going to be built, I worked with them for the last 2 years, offering small 2-hour free live webinar seminars. I'd say webinars, should be more like seminars, and trying to learn about the technology and how it's going to work and how it could be delivered and what does it look like on the other side and how does it look from my perspective being an instructor teaching in this platform. Like, what are the challenges? So I used myself as a guinea pig the first 6 times I did this. And I failed miserably, and I walked off screen, and people going, "You're off screen, I can't see you," and I speak a little louder, I can't hear you, and my mic would fall off, and I'd pull wiring, and anyway, I went through all these learning curves of trying to figure out what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to do this. My main idea is, how do I bring the instructor to the smaller town without literally bringing the instructor to the small town? But maybe we can bring a perfect high-definition image with voice and video, seamless connectivity there, and be able to interact. So, which means they have to have a mic, we have a mic. They have video, we have video. And how do we do that? Where did that placement go? And those are the pieces I've been working on to make it as virtual and live as possible, hence the word virtual live classroom. But it had to be done in a classroom platform, because that was the other thing that I did. We tried to do people on laptops in their own homes, going home and taking a course, and we'd put a whole bunch of people and connect them onto the system. Well, then you're hearing the dogs bark in the background, people ringing the doorbell, banging and clanging in the kitchen, and all this stuff was being transferred over to not just me, but everyone who's listening into the system. So finally we decided we needed a lot more control, because we can put as much control as you want. It always happens anyway, and you don't even know who is causing it, and then there's music in the background, and we had all these issues. So we went to the classroom platform. The classroom platform is controlled. We have somebody who can proctor it. So we decided that would fit the best format. And that's basically how we designed it up to the point. And November of last year, in 2018, we had our first live delivery of an 8-hour course to a public works group in Powell River, which obviously is difficult to get to, not a ferry, boat, plane. I mean, there's not much ways of getting there. So they felt they were quite remote and cut off. So we decided to do a live broadcast, a full 8-hour course on unidirectional water main flushing, a technical course. So I got my most lively instructor, because that was the other thing. Brought him to, at this time, it was the one that we're treating the trials at. And he was very nervous. I gotta say, he's never done this before. He's retired, and he did not know what to expect. And he kept envisioning these webinars and Skype business things and things going wrong. So I'd done all the pre-work. I want to make sure this is 100%. If I don't feel 100% comfortable, I wouldn't do this. And I convinced him to come, and of course we had to do it the day before and do the testing and make sure we connected up, because he wouldn't do it otherwise, because his reputation just as much as KPU is on the line here. So I had to make sure everything was right, and then the next day he sat in, we set them all up and working, and it worked out fabulous. And I found out some really good key learning strategies, because as an instructor, we always watch our students. We're looking at our students. We're telling, are they paying attention? Are they getting it? Are they falling asleep? Are they active? Are they being interactive? As instructors, we're constantly doing that. Well, how can we do that on a virtual live platform? Because we're still instructors. So now we have to bring that image of them as clear as possible so that the instructor can see them. And the other thing is that when an instructor talks to you on a screen or on a video, we want to make sure he's looking at you. So in order to do that means the camera placement is crucial in where the monitor is. Because when you're looking up at the monitor in the class, you want to make sure you're looking into the camera at the same time. So those were, and that goes on both sides. So that had to be that was very important. And once we got that, when he went in there in the morning, not knowing what to expect, total nervous and all kinds of stuff. By the end of the course, he was jumping up and down, and he could not believe how well it worked. So 8-hour course, full delivery. On the other side, all they had was a laptop with a camera on the laptop. They had a unidirectional mic, which a USB they plugged in, set it on the table amongst the 5 guys. They had a projector and a screen. That was it, and speakers. Other than that, they had nothing else. So it was nothing special, no special equipment, and they were on Wi-Fi at the other end. So we had to use the hardware on our end to do all the buffering to make sure we get the best quality video to them. What we got back from them wasn't HD by no means, but that was okay, because we just need to see how they're reacting, their body language. As instructors, that's what we're looking for. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but on the other side, it does. You want to see the instructor, you want to see his expressions and how he's teaching, because that's where the interaction is. And it worked out so well. So the only difficulties, and only one difficulty the whole time, twice for 30 to 40 seconds, they lost an image, not sound, just the image at the other end. So we don't know if that was buffering or Wi-Fi or what it was, but that was it. That was the only issue. So that was kind of my focus. That was kind of the reason why I did this. And now that we have that first running, now we have Civic Plaza, so we have the ability now to deliver this ourselves. Yeah, that's what we're working on right now, is getting that software, getting the hardware, meshing them together, and going through, fortunately for me, it won't be 2 years of research. It should be only a few weeks, and we should be up and running.
That's really exciting, Ron.
Yeah.
The big thing that it kept coming towards me is the fact that these workers, they're in Powell River, and they were in their plant, correct? They were in a classroom around their plant. So if something happened and they needed to attend to, they could have left, and the cost savings from sending 1 or 2 guys down to KPU or to the Lower Mainland to get that training is just
it opens the
significantly
doors.
less.
It hugely opens the doors, and you're exactly right. It opens the doors for all this training now. If we can, now that and something I didn't say is fiber. TELUS has got $4.8 million to replace all of BC to fiber. Fiber is instantaneous. That provides a high quality image with matched voices to the image perfectly. And that's what we really need. So that's helping me too, because they're about halfway through replacing all their fiber throughout BC. So that's going to really change the quality of it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have it, because on the other end we don't as much as we do on this end where we're delivering. But yeah, the cost is great. Now their 5 to 8 guys can all sit in the classroom. If there's a problem, half the guys can disappear and do their emergency repair if they have to. We can do the course the next day. The cost of the course, now they're saving on all that travel. I mean, I still have to pay my instructor and everything else. So the cost of the course itself, for me, isn't much different. But for them, they're now paying normal prices anybody would be in Lower Mainland. They can pay the normal price up there, and they can get that instructor. They can get that. We ship up all the materials, a few days ahead of time. So they have all the registration forms, the sign-in sheets, the tests, exams, the manuals, the copies of PowerPoints. It's all sent up ahead of time. All we just need is someone to proctor that. So it just could be a receptionist that could just make sure they fill out the forms in the morning. The course starts, and then she checks in regularly, he checks in regularly, and at the end administers the test, puts it in an envelope, sends it back to us. We mark it. We're good to go. And the accreditation body, which is the Environmental Operator Certificate Program, who accredits all the facilities and the operators to make sure that they're properly trained to do this. They've accepted this method for 100% continuing educational units, where normally webinars they don't, because it's not the same.
That's so exciting.
So they've looked at this whole thing, and I've done a little demo to them, and they went, wow, you know what? We will give you full educational points for that, for all the students that take this course. So that's a huge win. That made the next step. That was for us able to deliver to Powell River and now to others. So that's what I'm working on right now, is really getting that delivered out there. Advertising and marketing is going to be a real challenge because everybody kind of, again, even like my instructor, is thinking about these TED Talks, webinars, and all these other things that aren't perfect, that don't always work, that constantly crash. And yes, I know that is a possibility. It'll always be a possibility. But I think that the other end of it and the amount of the ability to be able to give this training outweighs the possible issues that could happen.
And I think even though there might be a risk for something not to go as well as you had planned, I think these guys or these students or these people who need to learn this will have an understanding, because they're saving this time and this travel to actually go down to the Lower Mainland. So I think that yes, it is a trial and it is something that you're working on, but at the end of the day, this is so valuable, and once you get it up and running 100%, it's going to be invaluable for anybody who's out in rural BC, and we expanding not only to BC, it could go more globally as well, Ron. I don't think that it's just wastewater management here. We're talking about,
this is everything, and this is anything, and this is where it all starts. So of course it started with public works.
Yes.
Because these guys are hard to reach, but they're not the only ones that are hard to reach when it comes to education. There's so many different opportunities, and this is where the excitement comes in, is that what we can offer, if we can make this work for the outside worker, this opens up construction workers, this opens up, and then from then on it goes anywhere. Like if one accreditation body will accept this for full credit units, then others will surely follow along too when you go into their area, and now suddenly they'll be looking at this technology going, wow, it works really well here, why can't it work over here? And there's so many opportunities for this, but it's so much different than the instructor sitting in front of the laptop and all the students sitting in front of laptops in different locations, kind of working on the same software program and communicating and doing group activities. It's different than that. It's taking the worker outside who's not used to working on computer systems. There's a reason why they're an outside worker. They like to be out there. They don't want to be in front of a computer. Be able to bring them in and then give them, this type of training at the same level as if they're actually in the classroom with an instructor, interactive and talking and laughing and communicating. That's the key piece that I don't see out there. I've done research on virtual live classroom, and they all go back to kind of the TED Talk system. And the other nice thing is even if out of those 5 or 8 guys, only 6 can make it, and we do the class for the day, we record it. We can turn around and send it right back to them. The other 2 can watch it on their own time, and they could get maybe not full credits for it, but they can give something out of it, right? And valuable learning. So there's another kind of another way to reach even more people that weren't able to make it to that classroom on that day. But however, that recording is available now, and it has all the questions back and forth. It's a full day recording, so it could potentially be another avenue to gain that education. So and that just opens up all kinds of things. I mean, those could be, it can get one step further. It could be posted on YouTube, or it could be, listen on to this one. You don't have to pay a huge amount, just a little bit, just to cover a few of the costs, on the delivery. So there's so many different things. And like I said, construction workers, any outside worker can be trained on this type of platform. Everything except for the hands-on component. That's where we're going to have our difficulties. But this at least gets that type of training in the door.
Thank you so much, Ron, for coming in and chatting about some of these exciting things that you're doing in continuing professional studies. If you would give one maybe piece of advice or recommendation, what would you leave with us?
If you decide that you think you can do this, choose a good software platform that's easy to use. Make sure that you, as instructors and as students, we have a certain way of learning things. We got to modify our system and our delivery to satisfy the student. So the student is obviously why we're all here in education. So we need to know our audience, know our students, know what they want, know what they don't want, and deliver accordingly. Don't deliver something that, this is how we do it, so you've got to bend around to this. No, it doesn't work that way anymore. Our new generation of learners aren't going to go, they're not even going to do that. You know, they want to pick up a phone and have live delivery on that. If we could do that, well, we can actually, but that would be their next step. You know, knowing your audience, understanding the instructor, understanding the experience of the student and the experience of the instructor are key ways of putting this together. And then the rest of it is really just software and technology. That's the easy part. Actually, I thought when I first started this 2 years ago, that would be the hard part. But actually I found out that isn't even the hard part. The hard part is making sure the instructor is still an instructor. He's still seeing the students, he's still reading the students, he's still, you know, he's still an instructor, and make sure the students still understand they're still a student and the instructor's there, and they still have to abide by the same, how do you say, rules, rules of the classroom. So that really is the key point of trying something like that. It's not easy. It's a way of thinking outside the box, thinking differently, putting yourself in their shoes. But once you do all that, then you can deliver an awesome product. I mean, I can't believe I'm still the only one that's doing this. I've done all the research. I thought this would be done years ago, but apparently it's not.
Well, we're getting the word out here, just even with this podcast, and hopefully we can spike some interest and get more people asking questions about how this can maybe work for their disciplines, and hopefully we'll be able to see this throughout BC. I'm really excited to hear more about it.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, it's going to be very exciting next few years to see where this goes. But the possibilities are just, I mean, they're almost endless, really. Like I said, technology's here, so now it's just a ability to utilize it. So, and 3D image is coming. We got Steam machines now and 3D image projectors. We can project a full from about the waist up of an instructor, but the steam and the smoke doesn't quite, still working on that technology, but that's coming.
It is coming. It is coming. Ron, thank you so much for spending some time with me chatting about all the cool things that are happening. I wish you luck as you start launching this program with the virtual live classroom, and I look forward to hearing about your success.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Caitlin. I appreciate being here, and I hope this has been somewhat helpful. Anybody wants to reach me, I'm more than happy to chat to anybody who's got some interest in something like this. I'm easy to find. Kwantlen Continuing Professional Studies, and my name is Ron Enns. That easy.
Implementing virtual live classrooms to meet the needs of working professionals who are living in remote areas, I think, is just the tip of the iceberg when considering the potential of this. Thanks again for sharing your journey over the last few years of implementing this project, Ron. If you think this idea could be a solution in your own classroom or discipline, please look for Ron's email contact in the podcast notes. You can also always contact the KPU Teaching and Learning Commons if you need or want help to explore other options within your own teaching. Thanks again for listening.